the full portfolio as it is today, July 6th, 9:50 a.m. And we're just going to underwrite everything. And as we underwrite it, we'll be writing the newsletter this week. Okay, let's see if I can make this bigger. All right, that'll work. Kinda. Okay. Let's first start with macro, and then we'll work our way down. It's been interesting to watch the last few weeks. The Dow and the Nasdaq have been moving in inverse. It's like this broadening trade that bounces between a narrow AI trade and a broad everything trade, consumer staples, healthcare, things of that sort. And so when it's broadening, the Dow's been going up, and when it's been narrowing, Nasdaq's been going up. Which I looked into the history of that, and it's not insanely rare that they move opposites, but obviously a high percentage of each day they're usually moving together. So it's just something. It's an interesting trend. You hear a lot about it, how the market's broadening from just AI, but then also it kind of shifts back. Today looks like a shift back. Okay. Can I get my screen here somewhere? Oh, this is what I was looking for. Okay, here we go. And then there we go. Okay. Okay. Wait, what does this say? Trump rings opening bell at White House with raft of CEOs and first of its kind market open. Trump rang the Nasdaq bell today. Unbelievable. That's I want to. Oh wow, Micron's doing good today.
do hope we get some clarity when we speak to Vlad Tenev.
And end up at a pretty young age being very rich.
Chair and CEO, and Nelson.
I don't understand. So they moved the bell into the White House? Interesting. Okay. All right. Let's go back. Let's check high yield credit spreads. I always like to look at these, even though they don't move that much. Okay.
Why is that not there?
Someone very smart keeps talking about this company, uh, so I just want to look at it. I guess they're partnering with NVIDIA somehow. Let's look. All right, let's not get distracted. Actually, um, Why am I not signed into Google right now? What?
Where are you guys in terms of the build out and certainly the deals with the government? And I also think about here we now have the backdrop of the U.S. war in Iran and probably pressure, something we're going to talk about later in terms of the military stockpiles here in the U.S.
So with respect to the America's Gold and Silver joint venture, we fortunately already have the land. We already have the permits, which puts us several years ahead. We're doing engineering and construction plans now. We'll start probably in the next 60 days. So we hope to have that plant up and running by this time or summer next year.
This time or summer next year.
Yeah, so March to June.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a little while to get online.
Yeah, well, it just takes a year to build the construction.
Okay.
We're talking about a $75 million project. It's not a little rinky-dink addition.
I wonder about the conversations you continue to have with the U.S. government, and especially,
this
again,
guy.
going back to this backdrop. Are you guys constantly talking? Are they talking about where are you? You know, what does this mean in terms of U.S. national security? Because I do feel like we are increasingly having conversations, and even this week and over the last week and a half, when it comes to what we're seeing in the energy markets, that even nations around the world are now thinking about, okay, what do we need to be energy efficient? So pick your critical commodity or resource that nations around the world are thinking about this.
Well, so two things have happened since I was here a month ago. Last week, we won a $27 million grant from the Department of War. We've been working on that for about 6 months. The purpose of that money is to reimburse us $20 million plus or minus for our facility in Thompson Falls, which we've been expanding since May. It goes live in 2 to 3 weeks. The other $7 million is for our operations up in Alaska. We have got antimony exploration going on there. So that was what that money is for. And then the week before, we announced a new resource report on another critical mineral that's very vital to the government called tungsten.
Yeah.
And tungsten's the second hardest mineral behind diamonds, and it's used for submarines and tanks, for shields. And we bought a property in Canada, Sudbury area, last May, and did enough work to be able to get what's called a third-party resource report that you can file with the SEC, and it shows $4.6 billion with a B of future revenues from that property. So we are on a fast track to get that up in operation. We hope to have it done this year.
Wow. Should investors expect more grants to come down the pipe?
I sure hope so, because we have a $45 million grant request into the property in Canada, Sudbury area, last May, and did enough work to be able to get what's called a third-party resource report that you can file with the SEC, and it shows $4.6 billion with a B of future revenues from that property. So we are on a fast track. $4.6 billion with a B of future revenues from that property. So we are on a fast track to get that up in operation. We hope to have it done this year.
Wow. Should investors expect more grants to come?
Tanks for shields, and we bought a property in Canada, Sudbury area, last May, and did enough work to be able to get what's called a third-party resource report that you can file with the SEC, and it shows $4.6 billion with a B of future revenues from that property. So we are on a fast track to get that. Up in operation, very vital to the government, called tungsten.
Yeah.
And tungsten's the second hardest mineral behind diamonds, and it's used for submarines and tanks, for shields. And we bought a property in Canada, Sudbury area, last May, and did enough work to be able to get what's called a third-party resource report that you can file with the SEC, and it shows $4.6 billion with a B of future revenues from that property. So we are on a fast track to get that up in operation. We hope to have it done this year.
Wow. Should investors expect more grants to come down the pipe?
I sure hope so, because we have a $45 million grant request in the Department of Energy today. We're doing a $75 million grant to the Department of War in 10 days. We're doing another $15 million grant to the Title III for our tungsten plant.
As CEO of the company, you have to plan for what revenue or money you will actually get when you plan these projects. What is your expectation that you will get those grants?
Actually, we run our company as if we're not going to get anything.
You do.
So you can't guarantee
the base case is
right.
we're not getting any money.
We're not getting any money. I think what the government wants us to do is move faster, which is what the money really does. Because I have to go raise capital, I have to do lots of things to fund it myself.
Right.
If the government jumpstarts me, I can move 5 times faster than I would with my own money.
So Carol asked about discussions with the Pentagon.
Yeah.
What about just discussions with other parts of the U.S. government?
You guys are talking with the energy.
Yeah. Like, do you have a lobbyist in Washington? Do you have somebody full time for the company in Washington? How do those discussions work?
I hired a guy full time in D.C. About 2.5 months ago. He helped me get this final $27 million done. He's the one that filed the DOE grant for $45 million. He is constantly looking. There's buckets of money in the government and all kinds of places that we don't know. And so we're trying to find out what they are. They don't necessarily communicate with one another. So it's a process. And then there's a system. I actually hired a former Department of War doctor who's helping us write the white paper. She knows what they're looking for.
Yeah.
So we're using all the tools we have available. As you know, General Jack King's on our board. He's given us some guidance. So I was spent last Thursday all day with Donald Trump Jr. in Dallas. We're doing everything we can to try to grease the skids so they know that we really are trying to help the country.
Gary, safe to say, and it's only been like a month since we talked last, that the pressure, I think you've already kind of mentioned this, that there is more pressure from the government to kind of get all this stuff up and running.
All you can do is listen to the news.
Yeah.
When the news is saying we're running out of artillery, that's not something you really want to announce to the world.
Well, can you give us some clarity around that? Because I think we're trying to understand, is there pressure on U.S. military in terms of the build back? And I'm just wondering, now that we're in our second week of this conflict with Iran, is it causing stress on antimony or other critical mineral shipments? What are you seeing, and what can you tell us around that?
Well, we know there's a stockpile.
Okay.
And our job is really to build that stockpile further. But it's not just the United States. It's NATO countries. It's Australia.
Right.
So we're trying to figure out ways that we can put, like the Hydromet facility with America's Gold and Silver.
I think this guy is so polished. Look at his background. Let's look. I thought I read he's had like 20 exits or something insane. Let's look at his LinkedIn. That's funny. All right. Okay, this is their CEO background. Gary Evans is a serial entrepreneur. He serves as chairman, CEO of U.S. Antimony Corp. UAMY is the stock ticker. We just showed that. Publicly held critical mineral mining company that is the only domestic player of antimony and trades on New York Stock Exchange. In excess of 200 million market cap. That's so old. I think it's like 2 billion now. Let's see. $1 billion. I knew that, by the way. Okay. Okay, so antimony is a critical mineral used in ammunitions, weapon systems, flame retardants, electronics. Evans is also the chairman CEO of Evergreen Sustainable Enterprises. Let's look at that. Okay. Sorry, I was editing the newsletter. Okay. God damn, this fucking one stuck. Okay. Let's ask Grok. Oh yeah, this is crazy. I forgot. I was listening to a podcast. This guy, he's now the CEO of billion-dollar companies. He started in the mine. He was literally going into the mine and extracting stuff as a kid. Okay, so his last business, he was the founder and CEO for 20 years. Founded the company in 1985 with just $1,000 and then built it into a New York Stock Exchange listed energy company. Sold it for $2 billion. You're telling me I'm not going to bet on this guy? Come on. This is such a good. Oh my gosh. Unbelievable. He's like in such a good position right now with this company, and he is the man to know how to handle this. Been writing this article as we go, by the way. This comes out today. You can subscribe on my Substack. I think it's on my X profile. I don't even care or know. Okay. So in 2024, they did 14 million of revenue. In 2025, they doubled it to 39 million. And then Gary, the CEO, is guiding for 110 plus million revenue in 2026. That would be doubling 3 years in a row. And then supposedly, I think about 60 million of that 110 million or whatever they're guiding for this year is going to be from Department of War. So that should be fairly sticky. So I feel like if you believe him, if you think he's a strong CEO, I believe him because he was working in the mines at the age of 18 and then grew to be a CEO of the mining company. That's pretty impressive. So he does what he says, I would imagine. And he's guiding and he's reiterated that 110. I actually think he said 125, but I'm just trying to not get too excited. But if he hits that and half of it's from government, half of it's from enterprise, whatever, and they're starting to get these real contracts and they're getting all these other facilities and mining areas online, like the tungsten ones or the stuff in Alaska or the stuff in Canada. And they've just got their smeltering for antimony up and working so they can start smelting other people's resources in the US. It just seems like there's going to be. Sorry, I just responded to my dad. Hello. Yeah, it just seems like there's going to be a lot of momentum behind this, and he seems like the right captain. So I don't know. It's a big bet for me, but I really think it makes sense. All right, so now let's look at a value. So the problem is okay, it's valued at $1 billion. What are the replacement costs? Let's start with that. I think that's a fair question to ask. What are the replacement costs? This is on the note. Their net income doesn't show profitability, 16 million loss. But if you go to their cash flows, also nothing. And so you got to look at this and say, what are the replacement costs of replacing the assets they currently have? And how much do we think those are going to be worth into the future as far as how much they can generate? So it's tough. It's a tough one. All right, let's get to the bottom of this replacement cost question. Okay. 568, 73, so that's 2,500. I had a stop loss today that cost me 2,500. God damn it. I'm so okay. Sorry, I'm just texting something. And trying to order groceries. Okay. Oh, sugar. That's what I needed. Oh, it was not sugar though. It was like organic something cubes. Sugar in the raw. There it is. Okay. Oh, my stomach is bothering me today. I got acid reflux from a coffee or something. Okay. Okay. They have no debt also. The fact they have no debt and it feels like a capex heavy business is probably pretty good. Shows they're efficient. Tangible book value has skyrocketed. Where is their tungsten mining operation they're setting up? Is that in Canada?
No, it's not in Canada. I think you're referring to Thompson Falls. The name is easy to mix up with Thomaston. Their main mining operation they're setting up is called Stibnite Hill. It's located right near Thompson Falls, Montana, in Sanders County, about 15 miles west of the town. The smelter is in the same area, so the mine feeds directly into it. They restarted mining there in late 2025, early 2026 to produce ore for their
No,
smelter.
I
They
said
do have a
tungsten. Where are they setting up their tungsten operations?
It's in Ontario, Canada. Their tungsten project is called Tung. They bought it in June 2025 for $5 million. Location: about 8 kilometers southeast of the town of Espanola, Ontario, roughly 70 kilometers west of Sudbury. It's still in the exploration stage. They completed a technical report earlier this year showing a big inferred resource, but they haven't started mining it yet. Want the latest on how far along the project is?
So they bought it for 5 million, but then the inferred resources show that there's $4 billion of resources there.
Yes, that's what they announced. They bought the Tung tungsten project in Ontario for $5 million in June 2025. In March 2026, they released a technical report that shows an inferred resource of 14.62 million tons, grading 0.17% Wa3. Using the tungsten price at that time, they calculated the gross in situ value, raw metal value in the ground, at about $4.6 billion. Important reality check. The $4.6 billion is not what the project is worth. It's just the theoretical value of all the tungsten in the ground before subtracting mining costs, processing costs, transportation, taxes, and recovery losses. This is an inferred resource, the lowest confidence category. It's based on limited drilling and needs a lot more work to prove it's actually economic.
Okay,
Tungsten
awesome.
projects
Very
are
helpful.
expensive.
Very helpful. Yeah, so tell me about the difference in the cost of getting these tungsten things set up versus antimony. And how much of their antimony resources and infrastructure can they leverage for this, or do they have to totally set up a new system for tungsten?
Here's a clear, direct comparison. Cost to set up, tungsten versus antimony. Antimony is much cheaper and faster for UAMY right now. They already own the only operating antimony smelter in the US, Thompson Falls. Their recent expansion to increase capacity is costing roughly $15 to $32 million. Most of the heavy lifting, permitting, environmental compliance, core infrastructure was already done decades ago. Tungsten, Fostung, is a completely different ballgame. It's still just an exploration stage project with an inferred resource. They'll need to build a full mining operation, starting with open pit, plus a tungsten processing plant, flotation concentrator to produce tungsten concentrate. A tungsten processing plant alone typically costs $15 to $50+ million, and that's before building the actual mine, roads, tailings,
And
and all the infrastructure.
if UAMY is the leader in antimony, who's the leader in tungsten currently?
China dominates tungsten. They produce about 80% of the world's supply, just like they
No,
do
I
with
meant in the
antimony.
USA. I know China dominates all this stuff.
In the USA, nobody is really the leader yet. The US has produced almost no tungsten domestically for over 10 years. According to the latest USGS data, there has been no commercial tungsten mining in the United States since 2015. Right now, several small companies are racing to become the first domestic producer. Almonte Industries is currently the most aggressive. They bought the Gentung Browns Lake project in Montana in late 2025 and are targeting production as early as the second half of 2026. They even moved their corporate headquarters to Montana. American Tungsten IMA Mine in Idaho is also pushing hard. They're targeting commercial production in 2027, possibly starting with reprocessing old tailings.
Is
UAMI's Fostung
Almonte
project.
a public company, and are they partnering with UAMY, or they're direct competitors with no overlap or complements?
Yes, Almonte is a public company. It trades on several exchanges: NASDAQ, ALM, TSX, AII, Toronto, also listed in Australia and Germany. Are they partnering with UAMY or competitors? They are direct competitors, not partners. UAMY is focused on antimony, with some tungsten exposure through their Fostung project in Canada. Almonte is a pure-play tungsten company. They acquired the Gentung Browns Lake project in Montana to become a major
What did
domestic
they pay
tungsten
for that?
producer. Almonte paid roughly $10 million total for the Gentung Browns Lake project in Montana. Here's the exact breakdown. $9.75 million for the main
How is
tungsten
this
project
stuff
mining.
so cheap? They're just buying land nobody wants. If there's no antimony and no tungsten production in the US, how can they just go buy this stuff for 5, 10 million? Isn't there some more competition than that?
Yeah, it's a fair question. It does feel weird that these projects are when the metal in the ground is worth billions on paper. Here's the real reason it's so cheap. 1. These aren't shovel-ready mines. They're mostly exploration stage or very early development assets. You're not buying a working mine. You're buying dirt with some historical drilling and an inferred resource. The $4 to $5 billion number is just the theoretical gross value of all the metal in the ground if you could magically pull it out. In reality, getting it out profitably costs a fortune. 2. The real money comes later, and it's massive. Building a tungsten mine and processing plant in North America typically costs hundreds of millions, sometimes over $1 billion. Then you still have to deal with 5 to 10 years of permitting, environmental studies, lawsuits, approvals, building roads, power, tailings facilities, and a mill. Huge operating costs. Most investors and big miners don't want to tie up that much capital for that long, so these projects sit around until someone steps up. 3. Very few players are actually in the game.
Okay,
You're
but
right that there should
the
be more.
government's funding a lot of this stuff. So how much has UAMY actually taken in government funding, and then also how much has Almonte taken in government funding? And uh, the UAMY, you keep saying 27 million, but I'm pretty sure it's more than that in the last few weeks or something. So triple check.
Here's the accurate, up-to-date picture as of July 2026. UAMY government funding, 19 million DPA Title III grant from the Department of War, announced March 2026. This is specifically for a facility and helping develop domestic mining in Alaska. As of their Q1 2026 report, they had already received $12.8 million in milestone payments from that grant. You were right to question the $27 million. I double-checked the latest releases. There have been no new grants announced beyond that $27 million in the last few weeks.
What about
What has increased?
total grants that UAMY took in 2025? Could have sworn it was more than 27 million.
No, UAMY did not receive any major government grants in 2025. Here's the verified breakdown. The $27 million DPA Title III grant was awarded in March 2026, not 2025. They received the first $12.8 million in milestone payments from that grant in Q1 2026.
Okay, on the
April 2020.
on the UAMY balance sheet, their total assets, well, their long-term assets have 0 in their long-term investments, and then in 2025, that goes up to 56 million in their long-term investments. I don't see that they had cash to pay for long-term investments, so I'm trying to figure out what makes up that 54 million, 56 million in 2025 reported long-term investments, because that's obviously not gross property, plant, and equipment. So I'm trying to figure out what exactly assets that is.
That jump is almost entirely the Larvado investment. Here's the exact breakdown from their 2025 10K. What makes up the $56 million in long-term investments? At year-end 2025, the two main line items were investment in equity securities, $40.5 million. This is their 11% stake in Larvado Resources, an Australian antimony gold company.
Wait, but
They
I
bought the
heard
shares on the
I heard Gary, the CEO of UAMY, talking about their investment or partnership with the Australian company. I thought he was saying it's going horribly wrong.
Yeah, you heard that correctly. Gary Evans has been pretty vocal about his frustration with the Larvado investment. In the Q1 2026 earnings call, he said they've gotten absolutely nowhere with Larvado's management team, calling them entrenched. He was clearly annoyed, saying they're pretty disgusted with how things have gone. He even mentioned they're now actively considering selling their entire 10% stake in the open market or to another buyer. Why he's upset? Their attempt to buy the whole company last year got rejected. Larvado has a Chinese shareholder, about 10%, and signed a marketing agreement with a Chinese company, which goes completely against UAMY's secure Western supply chain strategy. Evans basically feels the two companies' goals no longer line up. So while the investment is still on the balance sheet, the relationship has turned sour. The CEO is not happy with how it's playing out. Want me to pull the exact quotes from that call?
I guess, what is he waiting for if they've already moved on to China?
He's basically waiting to get a decent price on the shares. Even though Gary is frustrated and has said they're disgusted with Larvado's management, they still own about 10% of the company, worth around $40 to $46 million, depending on the stock price that day. Here's the practical situation. Selling 10% of a small Australian listed company all at once would likely crash the share price and hurt their returns. He said they're looking at selling either in the open market or to a single buyer, but they want to do it without taking a big loss. The stock has been volatile. It dropped after their takeover attempt failed, then recovered at times. So he's not waiting for Larvado to change. He's waiting for a clean, profitable way to exit the position. In the Q1 2026 call, he basically admitted the strategic partnership idea is dead. It's now just a financial investment they want to monetize when the timing is right.
He's doing all of this. Very few employees, also like 100. Just so high risk. Okay. I gotta go to the bathroom. Say bye. All right, all right, all right. Stop. Okay, we're back from lunch. He admitted strategic partner idea is dead, and now he's waiting to action the right price. Okay, let's go down to revenue. So they did 9 out of 40. That's 18. It's like 22% or something. So then they already have 22% done, right? Yeah, 23%. Wait, they already have gross margin. Oh, I see. Can't stand how they write these frickin' things like this. It's like negative, so you got to add it, and it's positive, so you got to subtract it. Like, just come on. Right, that's what I thought. So then why did it say the opposite earlier? Okay, so they're buying inventory. So then let's check the balance sheet to make sure it went up that amount. Yeah, you can see it did. Okay. Okay, so this is my thoughts here. So we tried to value. It's so tough to value this. Okay. I might just have to sell. Okay, so such a good story. All right, so estimated 150 intangibles across land, machines, smelters, roads, government contracts, blah blah blah. I'd say another 100 million intangibles. So that's Gary. That's their relationships with the government. That's the permits. That stuff. And then there's two more expenses on top of that 250 million of value, or whatever. There's time. Probably would take like at least 2 years to reset this company up. I gotta imagine more. You gotta get permitting for air, water, hazardous waste. You gotta get construction done for the furnaces, the refineries. You gotta get the supply chain. You gotta get it all vertically integrated. You gotta have roads that go between each place. There's a lot of stuff that takes a while to permit alone. And then there's cash flow already. So trying to value that. Okay, so let's put a value on that time first. If the tangibles and intangibles are 250, I don't know. Let's say 50 million. Who knows? Let's just why not? Let's say 50. Okay. All right, so we'll say 50 million worth of time. So that gets us up to about 300 million of value, and then cash flow. So we're going to anchor it around Gary's guidance, which is the 125, and then also anchor it around the $245 million DLA 5-year contract with the Department of War. And so they had to scale up they had to basically like source ore from other locations rather than have the capacity to mine all of it themselves. And that cost them, call it 10% on margins. But if you look back at 2025, they had 23% gross margin. So we're going to put their gross margin for this next year in the middle between their low and high. So that's about 19%. So if they do the 125, then that 19% gets us 23 million in operating income, and then they're spending about 25 mil a year in ops. So they would basically break even. And then if you look at it on a cash flow basis, it's similar. Essentially, free cash flow is definitely going to be negative because they're spending on capex. But if you look at it from an owner's earnings cash flow perspective, which is Buffett style, let's call it they're doing break even plus or minus 10 million. So essentially, I would say cash flow next year is worth nothing on top of that 350. If they were to double everything again, which would be their third year in a row doubling revenue, which is possible, we're then at a point where let's say they're doing 250 million, and then 20% of that is 50 million, and then they're still spending the same 25. So let's say they have 25 million of net income next year, or 2027. And then we can back into thinking they have 25 million net income based on the problem is we're basically relying on them scaling revenue 100% again, which honestly is like not that crazy of a base case considering the story here, but that's a tough thing to bet a big bet on. But let's keep examining. Okay, so what's the sector median multiple on earnings is 21. So I mean, let's just do the math. So if you had 21x on 25 million, that's another 525 million of market cap, plus the, let's say, 300 million we valued everything else at. So maybe you can justify this by the numbers as a $800 million company in 2027. Well, I guess you justify as $800 million company kind of now, because if this was 2027, we'd have insights into 2028. So what this isn't factoring in is really anything past 2027. But if they really could do 25 million of net income next year, that's really sticky because they're going to be one of the only ones that can do this at scale with full vertical integration. So they're going to have good margins, and they're going to have probably longer term contracts at that point. So this is a really tough call. I really love the CEO. He seems very honest. I like the story a lot. Even the price action on the stock has been interesting. Here, let's look at that actually. I just don't know how to value it properly here. All right, let's look at the price action. Okay, you can see that. What's this? You can see that the 200-day moving average was strong support for it, and then it broke it on June 8th, about a month ago. Let's get rid of this. It'll be easier to see. Okay. Get rid of this. So. I'm asking, why did it not hold its 200-day? Let's see how our stocks are doing. 0.5% up today. Not bad. Okay. We'll take it. Best performing is First Solar, followed by Innodata, followed by Palantir, followed by Ondas, followed by Meta, followed by Talent Energy, followed by NVIDIA, followed by Robinhood. Hey, I read that. It's just so not diversified. I'm looking for ways out. I am. I mean, it's diversified across sectors, but all of those are kind of like tied to the AI momentum. But then BlackRock's doing good. That's somewhat tied to it, but I got it at a great price. Dave is just on fire. I cannot believe this thing's doing this well. I mean, I should believe it. I bought it, but still. Okay. All right. UAMY had massive run up. Right. I know. Oh yeah, that's right. It had its earnings miss. Fucking had it. All right. Talk like a caveman when I speak to AI. All right, let's send this. Oh my gosh, Bentley, I know. Shh, I heard. I know. Oh my gosh. All right. I had to get groceries. Okay. Here's an ETF for small cap mining companies. You can see it also broke its 200-day the same day that UAMY did, which would tell me it's probably an entire sector pullback. Hmm. 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 So you can see it was definitely in an uptrend here. And I would argue it is definitely in a downtrend here. You could argue where this ETF for small mining companies is right now is at the top of the trend line that it was on from 24 to 25. Then it broke out in 25, and now it bounced back to the top of it. Hmm. So sick of fucking two-factor authentication. Everything green. Even crypto. Even commodities. Even natural gas. Okay. All right, this UAMY one is a hard one. My best deals have been out of favor value. I think we just gotta watch this very closely. All right.